Well, hello YouTube. Now I realized that my previous video regarding my first impression was mostly, let's say, poetic, and non-empirical values were put in, or non-empirical details were put in, which won't help anyone who is looking or considering to buy this machine or this bike. So in this video we are going to hit some hard facts which I have accumulated over 1732 kilometers of ownership, and we will treat this as an ownership observation rather than review. The reason being, to post a proper review you need to have at least 6,000 or 7,000 kilometers under your belt for a particular vehicle, according to my opinion. So I'm going to refrain from using the word ownership experience because I'm too young on this bike to actually post that, but we can pass some sort of ownership observations on the bike. All right, so let's get started. So starting from the front, let's talk about the tires. These are the 2024 Speed 400. So these come with Apollo H1s. They are decent in the dry and in the wet. They have a very good balance. But yeah, they do give the confidence to take corners very seriously. So that's a plus for these tires. The new 2025 ones comes with Vredestein, I believe, and they have upped the size in terms of sidewalls, so the bike looks much beefier and bigger. So that's that about the tires. Along the tires we have the brakes, which is actually a big selling point for this bike. The brakes are stupendous. They come from the manufacturers of Brembo, but yeah, their budget version, Bybre. These are the same manufacturers who do supply braking systems to the KTMs as well, the Dukes and the RCs and the Adventures, and the performance is stupendous. Make no mistakes about it. I have never had any panic braking kind of situation, but yes, I have been in incidents where I had to make corrections mid corners while being in a corner, and the brakes have not disappointed me. They do help out and in stopping, and do inspire a lot of confidence as and when you need them. That doesn't mean that they are problem free. One of the instances where I faced a little bit of issue was when I actually first bought the bike. There were squeaking noise coming from the front disc of the brake while braking during the hard braking, right? Like for instances like these. Right now there are none, because ultimately it came to the point of wearing down the brake pads enough. So the reasoning was too much material on the brake pad did produce those kind of squeaking noise. That was the only complaint which I had initially during my ownership. Coming from brakes to the suspension has been tuned to balance both handling as well as comfort. Feedback from my wife is it's actually comfortable. The suspension does soak up potholes very easily. Oh my god, sun is so much. So the suspension does soak up potholes very easily, and very little is transmitted back to you, but that doesn't mean the feedback isn't there, especially when you are taking hard corners and are in more I wouldn't say racy per se, but when you are in more into the riding part of your adventure, the suspension do again a very good job of communicating what's in the road. Something went wrong with that Innova. The suspensions have very good balance in managing both the comfort as well as the handling part of it. Now with the suspension out of the way, let's talk about the dash. The dash is kinda like the Bonnie's lineup from Triumph. The only difference being the Bonnie's dash or Speedo, they are much more centrally aligned, as in all the LCDs and other information are vertically aligned to the speedometer rather than the horizontal alignment which you see right here. The Speedo does its job. The LCD provides you with relevant information along with the gear position indicator. The only gripe or two which I have with this is, number one, the tachometer. If a newbie actually sits down on this, they may actually mistake the tachometer to be a fuel gauge. It's positioned that way. I wish Triumph had actually given a much more prominent tachometer, or rather gone for a two-port solution like that of a Z650 or a Z900 RS. That would have eliminated this issue completely, if you consider that an issue. But yeah, number two is, I have had experienced fogging on the left hand side or the lower left hand side of the LCD, and that happens especially when you are out in the morning rides. I have asked Triumph about it. They came back saying that there is apparently a drainage hole for any kind of hydration or moisture to leak out, but that also acts as an ingress for moisture, so that's why maybe we see the early morning build up because the temperature is low. Another nifty feature of the dash actually, which I want to point out, is whenever you switch from low beam to say DRLs, the intensity of the LCD changes. It actually got me into thinking that my bike is running low on battery, but again, when I talk to the service center folks, they say that it's a feature. Confusing, but the feedback which I've received from other riders, they say that it's helpful for them, especially when they are riding in the night, as they have less distraction being shown to them while they're riding or in the dark. So I guess that's a good thing. May not be my taste, but it's okay. Others are finding it useful. Now coming to the main control system, that is the handlebar. You have the bar and mirrors on the sides, which are actually very good in providing what's happening behind you, provided you are able to adjust them in a way that actually gives you maximum coverage. Next we have the handle grips and the levers. The clutch and brake levers on my version of the Speed are look at that complete confidence that nothing will happen to it. The levers, the clutch and brake levers, they are non-adjustable in my version, but the newer ones do have an adjustable brake and clutch lever, so that's good. The switch gears are actually robust and sturdy looking. They are not backlit, they are normal. Also, you notice these two over here, these two can carry the mirrors of its cousin, the Scrambler 400, so that's a good touch while sharing the parts bin, I guess. Now coming to the handlebar itself, again I have a gripe with it. I had a Street Triple 765R. If this is from a Triumph family, then the shading or finish of this handlebar itself is poor. It feels like someone took a spray can and just sprayed the silver color over it, compared to the Adonai's touch and machined feel which was there in the 765R. I understand this was built to a budget, but yeah, like I was saying, maybe the fit and finish of the handlebar at least could be better. Okay, next up is the tank, the fuel tank. This would most probably be the single most eye-catching piece of the bike. Mine is in Caspian blue and the shade does pop out while it is on the tank. I think the rest of them share same shade across the body apart from the fuel tank. The fuel tank is where the actual or the majority of the color or the shade which you choose come into the I would say the playground, the notice, whatever you want to call it. So that's that. The fuel capacity is, I believe, 14 liters, and based on the MID display and my calculations which I am doing separately, the overall range till empty is close to around 300 to 320 kilometers. So if you are riding somewhere between 60 to 80 kilometers an hour constantly in the 6th gear, keeping it between 4 to 6,000 RPM, you would be easily outstripping that range. Let's actually talk about the power plant. Okay, it's a 40 PS generating power plant with, I believe, 38 Newton meters of torque. It is quite rev happy, but would prefer lazing around. Quite like the Roadster design language which it is implanted on. So, but make no mistake, if you wanted to move and twist the throttle, this thing can lift its skirt and go like a bat out of hell. It definitely has the pace, but it prefers a much more relaxed riding condition, and I believe you would too, keeping it between 4 to 6,000 RPM, because as you start pushing to hit the 8,000 RPM mark, the speed is there, but the engine will be extremely vibey and thrashy, which you really don't want. That being said, in my preference, is best suited for urban runs within the city, and if you have anything more than 50-60 kilometers of open highways and want to cruise on it, then yep, definitely do it. Now that is not to say that it cannot do, let's say, other features of the Jaguar. In fact, last Sunday I did go for a mountain run for some coffee, and this thing behaved like a gentleman. Yeah, the engine has a lot of potential right now. I'd say it has 60 to 70% achieved, but yeah, that's the engine part of it. The engine is mounted in a frame, and that frame, I would say, with the combination of the suspension setup, is simply wonderful. Changing direction is a breeze. You can shift from left to right in a jiffy. It's like it's connected to your minds and thoughts. Just give it a little input and it will be already doing it. No questions asked. It is that agile, and I really am struggling to see any other manufacturer matching these kind of agility in their motorcycles. Maybe KTM or, oh yes, Hero. That's the frame sorted, that's the tire sorted, that's the engine. There's the cooling is decent in this bike. If you are coming from a 150 or a 200 category class of motorcycle, yes, please expect some sort of heat where you can actually feel it. It's normal. So yeah, there you have it. These are my ownership observations on the Speed 400. If you have any additional questions, then yes, the comment box is open. Feel free to comment over there, and hopefully some kind of empirical data has been provided now for you folks to make an informed decision, or at least ensure that whatever you were assuming is closer to the ground reality or not. Alright folks, till the next one, see ya, bye bye, always stay a helmet and ride safe.